Rich, I just noticed it's up flat. Oh, yeah. Ready, John? Do it. I think we're ready to start. I don't know if there was Hey, how are you? Good. You all set? Yeah, all set. Help. As long as the Wi-Fi holds up. It's always the best. We have 2 APs here. So.
Well, there's one up.
Yes, that's still there too. Yeah, right. Yeah. Triple cadets, right?
Who was talking about they're going to put another window up there?
Yeah. We gotta have it.
Well, that's just too tight. Yeah, you're packed in there. And
it's tight. Let's pull it out. And Harry, his side, Leverell, his side.
Well, those bleachers that kids stand up and their heads right in those windows.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So something's got to
knock some hats off one time.
Are you still in 18, Earl? Or did you get out?
No, I resigned from BT last April.
I heard that. Okay. But
doing what I like.
Good.
I like it. Things I have. Well, I start to take it.
Of course.
Are you ready?
We're live, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go on. I'm gonna tell everybody to find a seat, and we're gonna start the show.
I want to just go out dinner.
So good.
Good evening, everybody. I'm sorry to scare you a bit. We're gonna start the program tonight. Everybody will grab a seat. We also want to make sure everybody's got a seat too. So it's a wonderful evening. We'd like to welcome you all to Norwich High School for the 9th and the 10th Norwich Sports Hall of Fame induction ceremony. Lots of you came from a long ways away. I came from about 3 minutes away, so I was here all night setting up with a lot of people. We'd like to welcome you here. Some special guests. We have committee members here that I'd like to thank because many of you probably don't realize that we've been working on this since last summer. So we have Jim Dunn in the back. Tom Rose right here in the middle. I call him Coach Ballcheck, but he's Don Ballcheck. We just dedicated the wrestling room to him this year, so congratulations, Coach. We have Dave Rain. Where's Dave? Dave's right there. Maybe he can give us an old gold purple one time today. And we have John Stewart with us. Like, too. John's over there. I know Coach K's going to say something in a bit about two members. Since our last induction ceremony, we had two committee members that have passed away. We like to keep in our thoughts. We'd like to keep Frank Benedict and Mr. Don Sherwin as they passed since our last induction. And I know Coach K's going to say a few words about them. Just a couple of housekeeping things for you. Bathrooms, there's a male bathrooms over here, female bathrooms over here. So anytime you want to get up and use the bathrooms, you're more than welcome to. If you go out that door, you have to use the spar door to come back in. The other ones are locked. And there's also bathrooms in the main hallway. Feel free anytime to get up and use the bathrooms. We also would like to get a photo, sometime during the meal, we probably do it first, of all the people that are accepting on behalf of the inductees tonight. We'd like to get a photo with the plaques out in front of the Hall of Fame. So as soon as we start eating, we would like to get those people out there. So the people that are accepting on behalf of the inductees tonight, we'd like to have that. Are we ready, John Lee? Okay, so first we're going to have now Coach Don Ballcheck to come on up and give us the invocation.
Thank you. Chairman Turnbull told me that you could see about getting the gym air conditioned. It's way over there in the corner. Please stay seated, and as he mentioned, I would like to tell you that we lost two committee members recently since we had an induction, Frank Benedict and Don Sherwin before he passed. So if we could have a moment of silence for those two committee members, I appreciate it. Please stay seated. I won't be long, and I think I'm going to get my jacket off, as most of the attendees have. We gather here to honor persons who distinguished themselves in the long history of sports in Norwich High School. As we celebrate the past, we should work to ensure that the youth of the present and the future will have the opportunities they need and truly deserve, especially in this world which is changing so rapidly and has so many challenges and barriers for all of us, and particularly for young people, be they medical, social, or political. It is commonly authenticated by experience and considerable research that participation in sports helps our youth to mature in their motor skills, their team spirit, dealing with adversity and hardship, and maybe even helps many of us as we become adults and older adults. Those qualities are highly correlated by other studies to success in further education, as well as work and careers in society. Much research, as I said, about these supports that benefit for all of us. Therefore, let us appeal to others and to the highest powers to protect our nation in the future. Let us resolve to spend time, energy, and yes, money, because our student athletes are indeed the future of our nation. The legendary Dan Gable in wrestling stated in effect that after wrestling, life is easy. All of our sports that we provide fit that description. And they benefit us all. Thank you for coming, and enjoy this occasion to relive memories and revive friendships as we celebrate past achievements and move ahead to future successes. Thank you.
So as we start dinner, I'll tell the tables when they're ready to go up. And if we could have the people that are accepting tonight to go right out into the hallway, and we'll get a photo in front of the hallway with the plaques. Thank you.
Red, are you off?
Yes.
Can you
Thanks, everybody. start our program for the night. The moment everybody has been waiting for. Feel free, if you want to get up during the event, it's fine. We have desserts, so you can get up. No one will be offended if you get up and walk around. And leave your plates and stuff right on your tables. We'll pick them up at the end of the evening. We just want you to feel at home. Welcome back, everybody. It's gonna be a great evening. It was funny. I was thinking I didn't introduce myself, but I introduced the committee members. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Rich Turnbull. Many of you I've met for the first time tonight. But some of you I've talked to via letter or email or anything like that. Welcome. If you don't know anything about me, I actually teach social studies here at the high school, and I'm the athletic coordinator in the afternoon. And it's probably the most, it's the best job I've ever had. And I enjoy every minute of it. And I get to do great things like this and be part of a great Hall of Fame committee. And it's great. I feel like this is my hometown now, as I've been here for 20 years. So this is it's a wonderful, wonderful place. And you guys are all lucky to be now joining the Hall of Fame. A few just special things. We are trying to become very tech savvy here at Norwich High School. So if you got anybody that wants to watch this, we are now live on YouTube. And also don't say anything you don't want to be out there live. So that camera's live, and if you want to send a message out to anybody, you can just go to YouTube and you can just search Norwich Athletics, and you will find the link. You'll find the tornado. And please subscribe to our channel. We put stuff up all the time. We'll have a video on this. We put up probably 2 to 3 videos a week about our athletes that are participating in sports now. At the end of the year, you'll see some athletic banquets and stuff like that. Some really great stuff if you ever want to kind of stay connected to Norwich Athletics. If you're a social media person, we're very, very active on Twitter. We're at NCSD Athletics. And we pretty much post something every day if you want to keep track of what's going on at Norwich High School. If you have any suggestions for us, feel free. We love suggestions. One of the projects we've been working on, the Hall of Fame committee's been working on, is not only having the Hall of Fame out in the foyer of the gym lobby, we also now have the Hall of Fame online. So if you go to norwichcsd.org, there's actually a Hall of Fame website. You would see all the plaques and all the write-ups that are in your program tonight. So the inductees that are getting inducted tonight, their biographies you see in the program will be online probably by the end of next week. I didn't want to kind of spoil anything. I want you guys to see it for the first time. So if you go to www.norwichcsd.org, there is a Hall of Fame website, Hall of Fame page there, and you can see anything you want right there. And of course, if you have any questions anytime, you can always contact me right at the high school, and I'd love to help out if you ever have any questions. How the evening is going to proceed tonight is we're going to go through the 2020 inductees, the ones that were going to be inducted before COVID. And we're going to do them. Well, what's going to happen is I'm going to introduce the presenter. I'm going to read the plaque, and then the presenter will come up. The presenter will then will introduce the acceptor, and then we'll go through the program like that. And then after we do 2020, we're going to do 2022. So that's the plan of attack. If you want to follow along in the programs, that's what we're going to do. So without further ado, we're going to induct first Frank Alt. He's going to be presented by Tom Rowe. Frank Alt, class of 1966. Track and field, swimming, cross country. His triple jump of 44.4 in 1966 was the longest standing mark in school history, lasted 55 years. Finished 5th in the 100 backstroke in 1966 at the New York State competition in Buffalo. Section 3 champion of both track, triple jump, and swimming 100 backstroke. Ran as a member of the Section 3 cross country team at the New York State meet. Possessed an inner strength and ultimate endurance that enabled him to succeed, and he was inducted in the class of 2020. He's not here, but we think his nephew Carson and his sister Jane are watching on YouTube. So if you are, thank you. And here's Tom Rowe to talk about Frank Alt tonight.
Excuse me. Good evening. I'm here to talk about my good friend and classmate, Frank Hall. Frank was a very complex individual. He was a man who was driven, but had great empathy. He achieved almost anything he wanted, both academically and athletically. But the main thing was he was never a show-off. If you talk to Frank, he might be talking to you about music, he would talk to you about history, science, maybe what the new song was that he liked the best. And if you ever had a record, you heard about it from someone else, not from Frank. But when it was time to compete, he had the heart of a bulldog. He was relentless and had endurance that just came out of nowhere. To read a comment from one of our mutual friends, Joe Carvaglio, who was a teammate of Frank's on the 65 and 66 track teams. Joe says his athleticism was remarkable. I think he could have chosen any sporting event and became a winner. It came that easy to Frank. He trained and practiced with the rest of us, but I really don't think he had to because he was so physically gifted. But he was much more than an accomplished athlete. He went to Purdue University, graduated with a degree in psychology, but his wanderlust took him to Europe and to the Canadian Rockies, and he became bored with psychology and went back and got a degree in nursing. And he excelled in nursing mainly because I think what I alluded to before, the empathy. And while in Portland, Oregon, being a nurse, he had 7 days on and 7 days off. So Frank, being a kayaker, mountain climber, he came across country on a 10-speed bike to visit me once back in the late 80s. But he got involved in restoration in buildings, horticulture, rejuvenating gardens, and was highly recognized in the Portland area. While doing that type of work, unfortunately, he was electrocuted 26 years ago when a circular saw came in contact with a wire. He loved the arts, he loved the piano. It was just, like I said before, an all-around individual that just was a good athlete. But there again, in closing from my buddy Joe Carvaglio again, he says, having been an RN myself, I can say that this occupation, rewarding in many ways, is not something you choose to do only to collect a paycheck. And that's who Frank was, more than someone who could outrun, outswim, and outjump opponents, but a multifaceted human being who just happened to be a superior athlete. So on behalf of his sister Jane and his nephew Carson, who I hope are watching tonight from Portland, Oregon, I humbly and graciously accept this award for your uncle and your brother. And just as a side note, Frank would have been 74 this coming Tuesday, so Frankie, happy birthday. Congratulations.
The next inductee tonight from the class of 2020, Coach Charles O. Myers. He's going to be presented by Mr. Jim Dunn. He's going to be accepted by his son, Fred Myers. Coach Charles O. Myers, Norwich High School tennis coach, 1932 to 1963. Started school's tennis program, coached for a record of 32 years. Compiled a 155 and 124 record with 20 winning seasons. Coached 5 singles and 8 doubles sectional champions. Founded and oversaw Norwich Summer Tennis for 25 years. Coach of 20 other sports and advisor to 3 clubs. In class of 2020, Coach Charles O. Myers. Mr. Dunn, please join me.
When I think about Charlie Myers, my earliest memories are some pictures we have of Charlie and Eleanor and my folks and probably some others, maybe June and Stan, or I don't know, but we were all up the lake, sliding down the road, which back then, they didn't plow it, and they didn't sand it, or salt it, or anything. And we had a great time. We still have those pictures. Charlie was the longest serving coach in the history of Norwich High School. He coached tennis for 32 years, from 1932, although I thought it was 31, to 1960 something. He also, I got a call after the article appeared in the paper from a classmate of mine who was upset that I did not give fair coverage to the girls. There's a couple of pictures of Patsy and Patty Cooch, Anna Masterson, Mary Lee Curley, and it's something that we got started during the summertime. He now joins the other coaches of that era, Kurt Meyer, Dan Gildner, Sam Elia, Hal Bradley, George Echentile. They were all great coaches. When Charlie died, Jim Wright wrote an article in the Binghamton paper because Charlie and Jim were next door to each other over on Elm Street. And so Jim talked about more humorous things having to do with Charlie making sure that Jim mowed his lawn on time and so on. Kathy O'Hara, she was a great writer, and she concluded her eulogy with these words. And people listened to him when he spoke, because we all knew he had been through the educational wars, because we all knew Charlie Myers. He knew what he was talking about, because we all knew and respected Mr. Tennis. Red Myers is going to come up. And, where'd you go, Fred? Oh, there you are.
Well, there we go. The Myers family has bounced this job around. Finally, my brother Jim, or my brother Tom left because of his stomach ailment and handed me the, you do it. So here I am, and I've got my right hand gal with me, with my teaching straight, as usual. And you talk about boys tennis team. The only reason I took tennis up was the girls tennis team. And we had great summers. This all happened down on County Avenue. There was 6 courts down there. And, he had quite a tennis program. But on behalf of the Charlton Myers family and my brothers, Tom, Jim, my brother John, who's with us this year, we would like to thank the committee for this selection of our dad, Charles O. Myers, to the Norwich High School Sports Hall of Fame. We'd also like to congratulate the other inductees on their achievements, so they're being honored tonight. And a big thank you to Jim Dunn for the time and effort that he put into the article he wrote about our dad. Someone said that if Charlie had read the article, he would have been very pleased and probably would have given Jim an A+. I'll just give you a quick story. Dad was very, when you played tennis, you were polite. If you were in doubt, you called it in. I'd like to say you call it out, but you call it in. And so it was a gentleman's game, very much like golf is. And so we went to Colgate for the sectionals my senior year. And the guy who had been beating me left and right was my draw at Colgate. And I won the first set. And I'm really going. And I'm about 2 games ahead of the second set. And the whole world fell apart. And I got beat. And I probably threw my racket, and I was a big jerk. But so back in those days, there were no buses. Went up in your family's car. He wouldn't give me a ride home. So I'm standing on the side of the road up by Colgate, doing this with my tennis racket in my hand, trying to get home. So, but he loved the sport, and he had a lot of good success at it. We have some people here that I'd like to introduce tonight, just family members. My brother Jim. And you would be our grandpa. You're the niece. Anyway, we got a Charlie. Charlie Carson. He's named after our dad, Charlie Myers. Charlie's grandfather, Becky, and our family friend, Tom. Is that it? Thank you.
Our third inductee tonight from the class of 2020 is John Cook. John Cook, football, basketball, baseball, voted Norwich's most outstanding athlete for the 1961-62 season. Scored 738 career points in basketball for the 11th best all time. Earned 10 varsity letters in football, football 4, basketball 3, and baseball 3. Named an Iroquois League All-Star in all 3 sports. Played both basketball and baseball at Lemoyne College. And he was a member of the class of 1962. Mr. Cook is unable to join us tonight. He gave me a call on Monday, and he contracted COVID. So he was unable to come tonight. He wishes his best. And I gave him the option to Zoom in, but he decided not to because he wants to come next year. So he's going to join us for the 2023 induction ceremony. So if you were here to see John Cook, I apologize. And he will be here next year. And our best wishes to him. I believe he's watching out there on YouTube land. So if you are, congratulations. And hope you're doing well. Thank you. Give me 3 seconds here because I got a special presentation for Dr. Bob Freeman.
Yes, sir. Gotcha.
Up next, Dr. Robert Bob Cleveland. He's going to be presented by the guy behind me, Superintendent Scott Ryan, and it's going to be accepted by Craig Cleveland, his son.
Am I good to go, Rich?
Hold on, boss, hold on.
All I can see is the rafters currently.
That's all you need to see. Dr. Robert Bob Cleveland, Norwich School Superintendent. Superintendent of Norwich City Schools for 20 years. Transformational leader with great insight and vision. Fostered a strong sense of community within athletics. Believed athletics to be an extension of the classroom. And he's a member of the class of 2020. Mr. Ryan, it's all yours.
Mr. Chairman, well, thank you so much. It's a little cruder where I am right now based on those fanning themselves in that gymnasium. So, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Scott Ryan. Tonight, obviously, I have the honor and the privilege of introducing Dr. Robert Cleveland to this year's Norwich High School Sports Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, I am zooming in tonight because the COVID virus finally caught up with me, and consequently, I find myself quarantined for the first time since the pandemic began. And the irony, I must say, is quite thick, having been on a 2-year hiatus for the Hall of Fame ceremony. But nonetheless, I'm truly grateful that all of you could recognize and honor the coaches, the athletes, and in this case, a contributor to Norwich athletics. Dr. Cleveland, Dr. C, as I called him, served this great community of Norwich as superintendent of schools for 20 years. It wasn't the title alone, however, that affords us this opportunity to recognize him. Yes, he was always able to ensure appropriate funding for athletics. Yes, he was always able to ensure transportation was provided for athletes. And yes, he recommended coaches for approval to the Board of Education every season. I would contend, however, that it was something bigger outside of the job, if you will, that motivated this support. You see, through athletics, you learn, and mostly you learn life skills, how to persevere through adverse times. You learn personal discipline, how to be a member of a team, how to effectively communicate and advocate, and his personal favorite, how to hit a 10-foot jumper. In closing, he'd say, Scotty, remember, a connected kid is a successful kid. Our job is to create experiences for kids that will last them a lifetime, and for that, many have benefited at NHS. This is what drove him beyond the perfunctory roles of a superintendent, and accepting on behalf of Dr. Robert Cleveland, one who is still in search of the 10-foot jumper, his son, Craig Cleveland.
Well, I guess I'm still in search for that 10-foot jumper. I never shot that close, so get more shoot farther away. So on behalf of my family, I sincerely like to thank those involved for my father's recognition here tonight. I know he'd be flattered to be honored and be proud to be surrounded by the athletes and coaches being inducted here this evening. Tonight is actually his second Hall of Fame induction, as he is a member of his own high school's athletic Hall of Fame. I mention that because to understand the value he placed on athletics and their role in the life of a student, you have to have an appreciation for how it impacted his life. He absolutely loved sports. He was a letterman in football, basketball, and track, as well in high school, as well as basketball, track, and college. Sports were an outlet for him and a motivator for a poor student to go to school. Those experiences shaped his life and his philosophy around how athletics can impact a child in an extremely positive way. Sports are the ultimate equalizer, and he knew it because he lived it. He wanted to provide the same opportunities for kids through athletics that were presented to him in the hopes that they would get the same benefit. He knew sports can teach teamwork, accountability, perseverance, overcoming adversity, and so many other things, all which can be challenging to teach in a classroom. Sports can get truant kids to school. Sports can get kids with discipline issues to behave. Sports can provide a sense of purpose, belonging, and meaning. The mere act of participation provides the possibility of profoundly changing a student's path. His goal as an administrator was to emphasize those values to his staff and ensure the purpose was well known. He fostered an environment that allowed for athletics to flourish under his leadership, and it showed. The desire wasn't intended to be measured in an impact in wins and loss records or individual accolades, but rather in meaningful impacts made. His philosophy was all-inclusive, top to bottom. Teachers, coaches, administrators, volunteers, administrative staff, and everyone in between. Teachers held athletes accountable. Custodians maintained facilities that teams could be proud of. Volunteers opened weight rooms and coached summer leagues. They all played a part in making athletics a cornerstone of the students' experience, which ultimately led to them being better students. It's been said that no one accomplishes anything alone, and that would be true when it comes to my dad. He was surrounded by people who shared his vision, and I'd be remiss if I didn't share a few names tonight. Jack Jones, whose court we're standing on here, absolutely helped shape the vision for athletics. The coaches, of whom there are too many to mention, but a few names that were regularly spoken in my household growing up: Bob Branham, Mickey James, Coach K, are all people who epitomize what my dad believed athletics were. They gave freely of their time and expertise and were father figures to those that played for them. They challenged kids and held them accountable and made them better, and they all did a little winning along the way. In closing, I'd like to share a few words I remember from my dad's high school Hall of Fame induction speech that have always stuck with me. It's actually the only thing I remember. It was about the age of my nieces and nephews over here. And those words echo in my ears tonight. His biggest thank you was to the custodians at his school, because it was they who most significantly contributed to his success. Why, one might ask? It's because when he was a young kid, he would sneak into school during holidays, weekends, and evening hours through a window with a broken latch. The custodians knew he was there, and they never threw him out, and they never fixed the latch. The basketball court kept the kid busy and focused. In his eyes, the custodians fostered his opportunity, and then his work ethic led to the rest. That's what he wanted to do for the kids of Norwich: give them opportunities to do so, and put people and policies in place to help make that possible. Tonight's induction may be more meaningful than one for his own athletic accomplishments, because it's not necessarily about what he did, rather what he helped others accomplish. And I know that is something he would be proud of. Thank you.
I forgot the table I was working off, Tom. I heard you laugh at me. Our next inductee tonight is actually the first one of the 10th Norwich Sports Hall of Fame and the 2022 inductees, Joe Benelli. Joe's going to be presented tonight by Mike and Greg Benelli and Brian Benelli. I think Mike's going to come up and speak. He was going to be presented by a classmate and friend, Mr. Edwards, but Mr. Edwards could not join us tonight, so we have a little change to the program. So Mike's going to do the presenting and accepting on behalf of his father. Joe Benelli, NHS class of 1957. Track and field, wrestling, cross country. Won the 1957 New York State Pole Vault Championship in New Hartford. The pole vault record of 12 feet 2 inches lasted 14 years until 1971. Presented the A. Wesley Gould Award as Norwich's outstanding track athlete in 1957. He placed first in pole vault and the 440-yard dash in 1957 Iroquois League Championships. Undefeated 1957 Section 3 wrestling champion at 141 pounds with a record of 17-0. He's a member of the class of 2022. Mike, come on up. Joe Benelli.
All right, bear with me, I should be able to get through this without breaking down. I know my brothers and I have done a lot of breaking down in the last few months over this. So I want to start out. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, inductees, friends, and especially family. You notice I've got 3 tables of family, plus quite a few sitting in the bleachers. First of all, I want to thank the Norwich High School Sports Hall of Fame Committee for bestowing this great honor on a great man. And from this point forward, I'm just going to refer to him as Dad. All right. What a great dad he was. We'd like to especially recognize a few people. First of all, Jim Evans. Jim, as you know, came here tonight. He was going to do the initial presentation, but he couldn't be here with us tonight. And I know he is sad, and I am sad that he wasn't able to make it tonight. As you know, Mr. Edwards and Dad were friends growing up. They grew up together. As you read in the article, they spent a lot of time together. Dad wasn't really much into sports first off in high school. I know Jim got him to be interested in track and field, pole vaulting at his house, practicing at his house. Again, I'm sad that Jim couldn't be here tonight. I also want to thank Rich for his efforts in getting Dad's name up on the banner up there. Rich noticed that he knew Dad was a state champion. He also noticed that his name wasn't up on the banner. So, Rich, thank you for your efforts to get him up on his name up there. Finally, I would like to thank Tom Rowe for his outstanding article that he wrote about Dad that appeared in the Evening Sun. That article was outstanding, and Tom's analogy of a Superman was dead on. My father was a Superman. He was a superhero, and he was my hero. He was our hero, my brothers and I. Even though Dad and I did not see eye to eye on everything, I never lost respect for the man. As a matter of fact, I respected him so much that I modeled my life after him. I wanted to follow in his footsteps, do what he did, try to achieve the accomplishments that he achieved. I joined sports, joined the military just like him. I retired from the military just like him. Again, I tried to model myself after him. I respected him so much that I even named my son after him. He's sitting right over there. He's over there in the second. My brothers and I got into sports at an early age because of my father. I remember at a very young age, while Dad was stationed in Fort Dixon, New Jersey, I remember playing baseball and football because of that, because he encouraged us to participate in sports. I remember him, he would be there at every practice, he would be there at every game, encouraging us, making sure we were involved in sports. And his support throughout the years, which guided us right in through high school. And like I said, I can still remember back in high school, while Dad was stationed at his final station in Fort Meade, Maryland, that he would drive up from Fort Meade, about a 5-hour trip, come watch. It was either a wrestling match or a track field meet. My brothers and I would come up there to watch us. At the beginning, he would give us some words of encouragement. At the end, he would give us an attaboy, and he would get back in his car and drive that 5 hours back to Fort Meade. and he did that numerous times. So, you know, his support through our sporting careers was, you know. All right, again, Dad was my hero, our hero, and we are proud to call him Dad. And on behalf of my brothers, Doug and Brian, you guys please come up. I do have one funny story I want to tell. I told Coach K earlier. You know, in the wrestling room, we got all these names on the wall for all of the wrestling champions. And my son was in practice quite a few years ago, practicing, and all the guys were messing around. And Coach got on them all and said, you know, you guys can mess around once you get your name on that wall. And Joe, my son, stood up, looked up there and said, Coach, my name is on that wall. Anyway, on behalf of myself, my brother Greg, and my brother Brian, we accept this honor for our dad.
The next inductee for the 10th Norwich Sports Hall of Fame class, 22 inductee class, is William Red Moulton. He's going to be presented by Jim Dunn and accepted by his grandson, Rick Bastet. William Red Moulton, football, basketball, baseball, and tennis. Won 11 letters, 4 in football, 3 in basketball, 2 in baseball, 2 in tennis. Captained football, basketball, and tennis teams. Led the tennis team to his first undefeated season, 7-0 in 1935. Won Section 4 doubles title in 1935 with George Stone. All-conference pick, league scoring leader in basketball. Football letterman at Cornell in 1937 and 1938. The class of 1934, and inducted in the class of 2022, the Norwich Sports Hall of Fame. Mr. Dunn, come on up.
I don't know who all these tall guys are. Bill Moulton, he was part of the class of 1934 in Norwich High School. He was one of the early stars that benefited from Kurt Meyer's coaching, Charlton Myers' coaching, and he was a pretty good basketball player, even though Coach Meyer always said that basketball was not his strong sport. But he brought Al Bradley in a few years later, turned things around. Bill's 2 daughters have been very helpful to me in sketching out his life, and I'd like them to stand and so you can see them. they asked me, how did I know about Bill Moulton? I wasn't even born in 1934. I have to give credit to one guy who had a phenomenal memory, and he's represented here tonight by quite a few of his children, and that was Frank Morabito. When we started this Hall of Fame, I would go over to Frank's house and he would tell me these names. You know, Lou Newton, Tommy Manning, people I didn't really know about, but he gave me the names to research. Because you know, you can't research everybody. And that's how I found out about Bill Moulton. Another question that came up is, how do you compare someone who played football in 1934 to someone who played in 1994? The rules are different, the venues are different, the balls are different. And the answer to that is, we don't compare people from one era to people from another era. We compare them to their contemporaries, their peers, and that's how Bill Moulton came to the surface, because he was captain of 3 teams, football, basketball, and tennis. He also played baseball in his freshman and sophomore years, and then switched to tennis. He's an interesting guy, had quite a career, went to our alma mater, Doug, over in Ithaca, and he did not graduate from Cornell because his father died, and that was a few years after his mother died. And I thought about that a lot. You know, his mother died at the age of 36 when he was in high school from scarlet fever. And then his father died when he was about ready to start his senior year at Cornell. And his father died from a ruptured appendix. And I just thought, you know, if that had all happened today, they both probably wouldn't live. There's been that much change in medicine and so on. But anyway, his 2 daughters brought along a grandson. His name is Rick Bastet, and he's going to accept.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Bastet. I want to thank Jim Dunn again and the committee. Excuse me, for all their hard work. Water. Sorry, I came down with a little laryngitis last night, ironically. I'm going to be brief. My grandfather was known by his family as Power. And after he left Cornell after 3 years, he was pursuing a career. He wanted to be a large animal veterinarian. And he had to leave school because his father passed. He moved to New York City, met my grandmother Frances, and he started working at Woolworths in the stock department. After a few years at Woolworths, he took a job with this fledgling airline called Pan Am, and they moved him down to the swamp of Miami, which is where he lived and retired at Pan Am. But I will say he loved and continued to excel at sports. And one of the funniest stories is my father's family is also very athletic, and this was probably back in the 70s when Jimmy Connors and McEnroe or Jan Borg were playing tennis, and my dad started taking tennis lessons and thought he was hot stuff. And said, hey, pal, let's go, you want to go play some tennis? Not knowing his past. And my grandfather said, gosh, I haven't picked up a racket in 30 years, but sure, I'll go play with you, Wayne. And he beat my dad 6-0, 6-1, and my dad said, you know, you haven't played in 30 years. He said, did you ever play tennis? He goes, well, you know, humbly, he's like, well, I was a New York State champ back in the doubles back in 1932 or 34. And same with golf and bowling. He was a 300 bowler. He was a scratch golfer, and in his 70s won the A flight division at his country club at 70 years old, and was an unbelievable golfer. And even when we were kids growing up, we'd have, you know, Thanksgiving at my Aunt Val's house, and she had a ping pong table out there, and the kids would be out there playing ping pong, and I was a teenager, thought I was hot stuff, and pal, come on, play ping pong. And I don't think we could have a score point on, even in ping pong. And he would just put the paddle down and go back inside, and just a super humble, kind guy. But he loved the school. This community really shaped him. After his mother passed, you know, he was still in school, but he spoke often about the coaches here. And I don't know the names of the coaches, but a couple of things that he would say to us as we were growing up playing sports, he would say, his coaches would tell him, if you can touch the ball, you can catch the ball. And if when you score a touchdown and you get the end zone, you act like you've been there before. You be humble and you be professional. But I just want to thank, again, the committee. I want to thank my parents. I want to thank my Aunt Val and my mom for being here, and especially Jim Dunn for putting this all together. So with that, thank you.
The next inductee tonight for the 10th Norwich Sports Hall of Fame 2022 class, Coach Joe Grzybowski. NHS track and field coach from 1961 to 1982, NHS football coach from 1960 to 1966. Compiled in 108 and 51 track and field record over 22 seasons. Coached 5 undefeated track teams, 1965, 1967, 1970, 1971, and 1977. Won 5 Section 3 Class B and 2 Stack B track crowns. Produced 25 individual and 4 relay team sectional track champions. Coached 1965 football team to the first ever Iroquois League title. And he is a member of the 2022 Norwich Sports Hall of Fame class. The Grzybowski family could not make it tonight, so presenting on his behalf is Coach Don Kowalczyk, and it's going to be accepted by one of his athletes, Doug Wilson. Coach K, it's all yours.
I was supposed to be up here 3 times, but I don't have it the 3rd time, so bear with me. I want to thank all you attendees. The gym isn't usually this hot until graduation, and that's why we pray for rain to come the day before and the day after, so we can be outside. And to all of the honorees, all well deserved. Before we fled from New Jersey, we stayed in Norwich several times to look for a place to live. We noticed the friendliness of the residents and the business people. I had traveled up to Colgate several times to ball games and wrestling meets, and I know there's good fishing around here, so it narrowed it down. I applied to teach in several places, but chose Norwich as soon as they offered me a job. Soon after, I met Joe Guzbowski, Bob Peffley, Gary Strout, and a lot of other coaches, because I had coached previously in New Jersey, and I was interested in the athletics for children. Joe lived in Southtown, as they called it. I said, "Where's Southtown?" And then figured out it was South Grove. So we visited back and forth quite often on weekends and so on, and picked berries at his place, and he advised me to plant blueberries, which I still have planted behind my house. He rode, it had to be a big horse, right? A big gelding named Thunder. He rode it 10 miles down to our farm one summer where we kept the horse because we had a mare named Nellie there, and for companionship, and we rode them. Anyway, that was the beginning, and I found out about his football career at Syracuse from other people. Joe didn't talk much about himself to me, anyway, and to a lot of other people, I guess. And in the spring, I remember he asked me about sports, and I had done some track and cross country in high school and college, and I volunteered to time. And I think it was late April, but it might have been early May, because I know we had snow in May one day. And we were timing the sprinters in the 100-yard dash before the metrics. We had to stop for 10 minutes because it was snowing so heavily we could not see the smoke from the starters on the starter watches. So I did that to help him, and we got along pretty well. Later on, I was coached into taking over the wrestling program after we tried to fix up our farm. Still trying. Joe started the indoor track team here, which really grew under him and helped, of course, the spring turnout. He had access to all the prospects in the fun gym classes, and I had them prisoners in my English and history classes. So we had an advantage. So we became friendly rivals, but more friendly than rivals, I think, for most of the time. And I won't go through all the records of successes because Tom Rowe has once again excellently described them in the article, and you should look at it if you haven't seen it. Tom himself is in the Section 4 Hall of Fame because he's been doing this many years for them and covers a broad area and has tremendous knowledge of sports and a lot of stats at home. Anyway, Grizzy was a big man in many ways besides his coaching success. His son Jeff told me that Joe took over the football program here just a few days after his wife tragically was killed as a result of an automobile accident. And he did, I think, a pretty creditable job for several years in one airport league before that folded up. His three sons were Chet, Matt, and Doug. All of them unable to be here because they're spread out, and I'll explain why in a minute. We're notably outstanding athletes here at Norwich, and I think one at least still holds the record, right? And they attended large universities, Division I universities out in Michigan and Dakotas and wherever. And one was at Colgate, but moved out to the Dakotas. So Joe was a big family man also. He later suffered another personal tragedy when his daughter, his only daughter, was killed in a car accident. Joe never talked about these things. I found out from others, including Tom Rowe, and from talking with the sons. But we became more friendly later on when some of us coaches resisted something that maybe some of you will remember, an educational innovation called flexible modular scheduling, in which students had a lot of free time. The teachers did, and the students were supposed to come and see us. It didn't work out. Anyway, I later got Joe to laugh when a book came out about it, and I told him that we were in a chapter in the book, and he said, really? Because we were against it, because it was more harmful than good. And I said, yeah, there's a chapter in there towards the end that says there are always forces that resist change. And it was one of the few times I remember his laughing, because he played cards with us, and he later started to hunt. And after he passed away, because I'm going to skip over some of this and move on before we all look, I invited Joe to come up and hunt after his sons moved away. His sons would come with him when they were younger, but they all moved out to places where they got to school, where they had better job opportunities, except for one who's still around here with Joe's second wife, Winnie, who taught school here, and some of you may remember her. She was a fine teacher. They did not attend also. But when I went to the calling hours for Joe several years ago, Chet, after I talked with Winnie, called me aside and said, I gotta tell you something. And I didn't know what it was, because I would ask questions about Joe, but I was just here to pay my respects. And he said, my dad told me something one time. And I said, what was that? About our arguments? He said, no. He said he told me that if he had to die, he would like to die in the Balch's Woods because it's so peaceful there. So there was a lot going on in Joe's life that others weren't so privileged to know about. But he was a very good recruiter, very convincing, and definitely got the athletes to work hard and believe in themselves. And that's a quality that I think all coaches ascribe to. And now, to explain what I was going to say before, I'm going to call up one of his former athletes to accept this award. He was a pretty good fullback, I understand, and for a short time, a quarterback, a very short time, a quarterback. He was a prominent businessman in town here, and he will accept on behalf of the family, Doug Wilson.
Dean, I want to talk about Coach Kowalczyk, how long he's been around here. But I had him for 12th grade English. We just had our 50th anniversary last year. So he's been around here a while. Anyways, first I want to congratulate all those that are being inducted tonight. Those that were nominated probably didn't get in yet. We will someday. Also like to thank the committee on behalf of Joe's family, and thank Tom Rowe for the wonderful articles that you write in the evenings on. Tonight I'm here to help induct my high school track coach into the Hall of Fame. I will accept this award on behalf of his family who could not be here. And it's too bad that Doug Grisbowski couldn't come. I was lucky enough to break the discus record when I was in high school. And, in a track, or somebody breaks a record that's usually by a few inches, or a couple seconds maybe, or even less than that, tenths of a second. Doug Grisbowski broke my discus record by 22 feet. But, records are made to be broken, and go for it. Anyways, Joseph K Grizzles, better known to everyone in the late 60s and early 70s as Grizz, maybe Grizzy. He was born in 1925, passed away in 2007 at the age of 81. Like many young men in the 1940s, Grizz probably fought for his country during World War II as a member of the Army Air Corps, which later became the Air Force. Following his service, he graduated from Syracuse University, began a teaching career that took him from Baldwinsville to Nyack, New York, before his arrival here in Norwich in 1960. I was 7 that year. Chris coached football. I remember looking up to him. He's the coach that got Norwich to beat Oneonta after many years of losing. So you just looked at the head of the puck team. He was like 6'5". But anyways, he led Norwich to a championship team twice. That's not why we're here. He became the track and field coach in 1961. Remained in that position until 1982. I arrived at Norwich High School in 1968. And like many of my classmates, I played football in the fall and basketball in the winter. When it came to the spring in 1969, I didn't really want to play baseball, so I thought I was free and clear for a couple months. And big coach Grizz came and put his arm around me, and he hinted very strongly that he wanted me on his track team. Because I need someone in the throwing events, the shot put, the discus. And knowing his size, I don't think anybody in this room would have said no to him. That's what you meant by being a good recruiter. And I think we were afraid. I said I didn't have any experience in track. I had little experience throwing the shot put and nothing in the discus. Did not matter to him. He said he'd work with me and teach me. I didn't know how to hold the discus. I didn't know how to throw it. I threw an 8-pound shot 2 times in the Perry Brown yearly track meet, 5th and 6th grade. That was an 8-pound shot put. My elementary gym teacher, Jim McBride, told me to just kind of slide sideways and throw the shot put. So that's what I had for Grizz, and he didn't care. He said, go ahead, do the best you can. Well, I had a little bit of success with it. He gave me some good tips. And he worked hard with me on the discus. He patiently worked with me until I had the basic concept. Much harder than it looks. And I know if Doug were here, he would agree with me. During my sophomore and junior seasons, I enjoyed a bit of success in both events, thanks to Coach Grizz. However, I still use that same scientific approach to the shot put. During my senior year, I decided not to play basketball. And I went to Coach G and I said, I think I'd like to be on the winter track team, but I'm only going to do it if they teach me a new way to throw the shot put. Well, I don't know where he came up with it, but they had a plastic shot put. And I threw it right in this gymnasium. And it would pancake when it hit the floor, rather than leave a big crater in the wood. It would just flatten out and then reshape it and go back and throw it again. So I learned a new way to throw the shot put. I eventually made it to Barton Hall at Cornell University, and I actually won the shot put in that indoor in my first year. I think it was the second year that there was a winter track team in Norwich. So during the spring of 1971, I was lucky. I was able to break the record that Bob Andrews set the year I was born, 1953. And I think Bob Andrews is a member of the Hall of Fame, if I'm not mistaken. We had a lot of very successful track teams under Coach G, along with his assistant, Bob Peffley. We had good people in every event. And Coach Peffley coached the sprinters and runners, while Coach Grzybowski was the head coach and coached the field rats. I got one story to tell. Herb Mendel graduated the year before I got to high school. He graduated in '68. And he went to Cornell, went on to become a doctor. But anyways, Herb was a field event participant in high school. He threw the shot at distance. And he went to Cornell, he got to throw the hammer and the javelin. So we were having track practice, and Herb showed up. He brought a javelin, brought a hammer so we could try it. He was just there having a good time, having fun. It just happened that night that Coach Grizzles was working with the sprinters. And if you remember, some of you, the track was where the middle school is now. And it was made of cinders. And there were metal edging along the edges of the track all the way down. So anyways, I don't know why I was down with the sprinter front because we thought we could do anything. But he was going to start a race, and Herbie was walking across the far end of where they were going to sprint. And he couldn't start the race. So he took the starter's pistol and he goes, "Herbie!" Blam! About that time, Herbie hit the metal edging on the track and fell down. Joe Grabowski looked at the gun. I thought this was a starter's pistol. It was hilarious things. All right. We all know that most high school coaches can only recruit team members from the kids that have to come along every year. I've always felt that from time to time, a coach gets a group of kids that anyone could coach and win. There are coaches that are given a ragtag bunch to coach them into champions. And I think Joe Grabowski was both of those. So on behalf of his family, I'd like to thank you for this induction into the Hall of Fame.
Our last inductee tonight is actually a team, a freestyle team. Tonight's last member of the 10th Norwich Sports Hall of Fame is the 1974 400 Freestyle Relay Swim Team. The members of that team were Bob Bowers, Andy Eaton, Paul Eaton, Rob Echentile, and Ken Rabideau. They're going to be presented by their friend John Stewart. I believe we have Andy Eaton here tonight. Paul Eaton's son Matt's going to come up for Paul, and Ken Rabideau's here. So, the 1974 400 Freestyle Relay Team, first Norwich swim team to win the state championship in all classes, set the Section 4 and school record. The latter lasted 28 years. And they are going to have a banner newly right up there where it should have been about, 30 years ago? It's going to be there next year, down the hallway now. And here's John Stewart to talk about it.
Hang on. Anybody ever been to an Echentile banquet? They went on for hours. In the true tradition, I was a high school coach. My banquets would go on for hours. And I only had 13 kids. You've been here a while? Buckle up. Just kidding. I couldn't help it. If you were around Echentile, you knew that he was just so infectious. Whatever happened, it was just going to be exciting and eventful and just amazing. And I'm here to honor an amazing thing. So I did write something, and I'm going to try to get to it without stumbling too much, but I think words are important. I'm a graduate. 79, let's make something clear. I was a springboard diver, not a swimmer. You don't understand that? Ask the soccer coach to coach football. After all, we play on the same field. But more importantly, we were all part of Echentile's Purple King. And for me to be up here, to be able to talk about that and honor these guys, it's awesome. Because I truly believe that this group, first of all, this group is the first relay, whether it's track or swimming, to be here.
a state champion at all classes, not just A's or B's, small school, large school. What they accomplished, well, this is what I wrote. I said, I like to think that our best days in life are not what we did in high school. But such events are so memorable and so worth noting for the present and for the future that it's an honor to be able to do this right now for you guys. I was tennis coach for Norwich for many seasons. And every year, I would bring my teams into this place. And I would tell them, look around. Look around and look at all of the tradition that goes on here. Look at the wins. Look at the championship banners. And I'd always say to them, make your mark. Make your mark. You know, get your year up there. Well, guys, you're getting your mark, and it's well deserved. So, congratulations. So, unfortunately, a few of them couldn't be here. And Rob Echentile, dude, I'm a dieter, remember, we hang. I hope you're watching out in Seattle, Washington, because you're certainly here in spirit, and I'm sorry you couldn't make it. Paul, I don't know, maybe we're kind of glad we would have gone on and on and on. We would have been in the true tradition of an Echentile speech, and may never have been. And I had the hook from the pool just in case if you went on and on and on. Anyway, Paul, I hope you're feeling better. Sorry you couldn't make it. The other gentleman that's not a part tonight is Bob Bowers. Bob, unfortunately, had passed before he could be recognized here in person. All of these guys, I have personal relationships with. And I think ultimately, what makes it really special is they all grew up swimming together. They all grew up being friends. Not only just swimming buddies, but lifelong friends. And I look on this moment right now with everyone as a lifelong friend. And that comes from two things. One, growing up in Norwich. How do you describe Norwich to anybody else that hasn't grown up here? It's a special community. It really is. You know, I look at the Clevelands, and most of us work together with my father and me at the deli. I mean, and going around the room, I've had relationships with most people. And that's what makes it special. So I'm going to go through and say their names, bring them up, and let them do their thing, because that's important too. Now, there's one last point that I would like to make that can't be underscored, and I think Doug brought it up earlier. The facilities. You know, Doug said he was on the old cinder track. Well, folks, if you hadn't been in the YMCA lately, you know, it was a 20-yard, 3-lane pool. Put 20 swimmers in there and 3 divers, and see how much really you can accomplish in a practice. And oh, by the way, it's not our pool, it's a borrowed facility, so we had to get up at 5 in the morning, and the divers had to do it, and get our workouts in. So to accomplish what they had with the facilities they had, it's just so, well, Paul liked to put it as a Hoosier kind of moment, where it truly was a dream come true, and the work that you guys did. Kids can be in the right place. Anybody can be in the right place at the right time, but that doesn't mean that they're going to make the moment or succeed in that moment. And to be in the right place at the right time with 5 guys that were, and then made it happen is just a wonderful achievement. But let's go back to that 20-yard, 3-lane pool. Hell, my mother's pool was almost as big as that YMCA. Nothing cool. But it should be noted that it was a 20-yard, the only 20-yard, 3-lane pool in the whole property state. So, with that said, what I'm going to do is bring them up in accordance to the relay. So, swimming the first leg of the relay, at the time, I believe, was sophomore Ken Morabito.
This will be really short. Thanks to the committee, everybody. Thanks for my family for coming. It's really nice, and I really appreciate this honor. And I don't think that I would have ever got into swimming unless it was for the Eaton boys. I started hanging out with them down on West Main Street, and then all of a sudden they sucked me in. So, but those two guys, I think, are the greatest swimmers, in my opinion, that Norwich has ever had. And thank you very much.
Swimming the second leg of that infamous relay. Understand that this relay was also at West Point. The state championships were at West Point. How do I compare that to me and my generation and our thing? The high school tennis state championships for boys are held at the U.S. Open. My son and my nephew had a chance to go down there for 3 years and compete down there, and I can tell you it is awe-inspiring and it gives you goosebumps. And I can't imagine what you guys were doing. Well, I hope what you guys were doing when you walked in there, the hallowed grounds of West Point. The story reads really well, and I'd like to give also Paul credit because it was Paul's story that was told in that article. But winning it at West Point and then having the opportunity to do it at Trophy Point, I only wish I was there, screaming, carrying on like we all did, during those meets. And if you've never been to a swim meet, it's the most electrifying thing you've ever been part of. You can smell the chlorine, you can smell the baby lotion, guys walking around going, slapping their arms. It's just exciting. And I could see it. I could always see it. Anyway, Bob is not here, unfortunately, and there isn't a family member here to accept the award. So what I'd like to do is bring Ken back up. You don't mind, Ken? And accept the award for Bob and as part of your team.
I can be even shorter. Bob was, he was a great guy. He was a great swimmer. We hung out, we all hung out pretty much, didn't we, Andy? We were pretty tight guys, and George was, he was a great guy out there. He was, swimming was part of the fun with George. I mean, we did things that we'd never thought you'd do. So, half Bob, I guess, or his family, hope you're watching. Congratulations.
Thanks, Ken. So we come to Rob Echentile. Rob was the first alternate on the team. And in swimming and in all relays, after going through a lot of track seasons with my daughter, there's always alternates. And Rob was the first alternate for the team in the relay. As the article read, he swam a lot of events, scored a lot of points, and he was coach's son. And from a coach's standpoint, and I have to say this, and this is where the integrity of Rob and coach come in. Rob was pulled from that relay and inserted with Bob. And that shows the camaraderie that these guys had, that they were still able to achieve what they wanted to do. And I think, Rob, you were integral in that, and the way you handled yourself and the way you still led the group and cheered them on. So, on behalf of Rob, who is in Seattle, Washington, and I hope you're watching live on Zoom, Andy, would you come up and accept that award, please? Thank you.
Bob was a great guy. We had such a great time swimming, as Kenny's mentioned, the whole relay team, putting it all together, and Coach came to us and said, what do you guys want to do for this? And what I recall, Rob was like, I think I need to watch this and not be in this. And Bob stepped in. Bob did an amazing job. The relay came out, and you read Paul's article, we won by 1/10 of a second. If you think about that, I do a lot of aerospace industry work. 1/10 of a second is a long time there, but it's a very short time on a relay race. So, on behalf of Rob, I accept this and thank you very much for that award.
So, Rob, sorry, I'm not talking to you guys right now. You're the other one like Bob Ware and Grateful Dead. That's the way I think of you. So I hope you're watching. Well, third anchor on the relay, the younger brother, who should not be overshadowed. I'm the younger brother, I'm always overshadowed, but had a heck of a run in swimming. Just to let you know that 60 yards do have records, and 60 or 20-yard pools have records, and they're not in 50 yards, they're in 60 yards. And Andy set, or actually tied the national record with a 60-yard freestyle my freshman year, his senior year, right? Also broke 8 of the high school swimming records at one time that were on the board. So an animal in his own right, younger brother to Paul, but his own individual. Let me introduce Andy.
First, thanks to the committee, thanks to everyone putting this together. Congratulations to all the other inductees. What an honor this is. This is really nice. I want to thank a few people. They sound like a movie thing or something, but I want to thank my mother. She's here at 96 years old. But without her, I don't go to those swim meets when I'm little. I don't go to those, get the training, get the practice, get all the things I need from her. And what a mother she was. She made sure we got everything. I'd like to thank Coach Echentile. I know Betty's here. Coach Echentile, what a driver he was. We talked about the 20-yard pool. Some things that I'd like to bring up that was amazing. You look at these weight rooms they have now for athletes. Coach Echentile took coffee cans, filled them with cement, put a hole in the middle, and that's what we went down in the boiler room of the YMCA and lifted weights on. That was our weight setting. So the things he came up with, the purple game, Stomp the Bears, the 20-yard gut, inspiration all over the place. Can't beat that. He was a man of everything. So I thank Coach Echentile. Lastly, I'd like to thank Kenny, Bob Bowers, Rob Echentile, my brother Paul, if you're watching. But all you guys, doesn't happen at all. Thank you very much.
Last but not least, the anchor, he's already inducted in the Hall of Fame. Paul, unfortunately, is not here, he's sick, which is unfortunate because now when you're sick, it's not just that you're sick. You could have COVID, and COVID leads to, we don't want you, unfortunately. So, with that said, I have to say that Paul was really integral about writing the article. There was just too much detail that I could not come up with or I could get out. And your dad is just a wonderful guy. He thinks about us all the time. And if he was up here today, he'd be talking more about anybody else than himself. I I'm so happy he moved back to Norwich because it gave us a chance to rekindle and re-get together and have, more time and a lifelong friendship continue. So with that said, to accept the award is going to be his son, Matthew. Would you like to come up?
Well, you all are very lucky tonight because while my father's swim times were very quick, his speech times are usually very long. I know what's happening. I'll start off by saying my father is very sorry he couldn't attend tonight. I know this was a very important event for him. So I can't understate how disappointed he is to be missing the ceremony tonight. He's always been an ardent supporter of Norwich athletics. I definitely grew up hearing many stories about his time on the swim team here. To be recognized by that program is truly an honor for him. So I'd like to take just a moment to talk about one story. You may have read one of the articles out in the hallway here. After a disappointing second place finish at one swim meet, he printed and stapled the first place finisher's name to the wall. Even more than that, he stared at this guy's name for hours. Now, you may think that, as I once did when I was younger, that is a really strange behavior. High school kids don't normally do that, but it worked. At the very next meet, he beat the guy by 9 places. And as I grew up, I remembered that story. It stuck with me as just one quirk of a pretty quirky guy, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that there was a significance behind that behavior. The program here helped him refine a lot of different qualities that are very important for a student athlete. Things like drive, perseverance, vision, resilience in the face of adversity. And those are things that he has always imparted on me and my siblings, values that he's always lived by. And I think that the Norwich athletic program played a big role in developing those qualities in him. I think he would agree with me when I say that. So I wanted to thank the Hall of Fame committee tonight for this ceremony and for the induction. Thank you to our family, his mother, my grandmother who's here tonight, his wife, my mother, who's also here, and the rest of our family who was able to make it tonight as well. And though he's no longer with us, I want to give a special thank you to Coach George Echentile. There are few men whom my father hold with such reverence as George. When he passed, I don't know if I've ever seen my father get emotional, but he did when George passed. Congratulations to all the inductees tonight, and thank you very much. We appreciate it. Congratulations to them.
So that concludes the 400 free relay. Before I walk away though, I do want to take one moment and just thank Rich Turnbull. Rich, it's been a joy to work with you, dude. It really is. Rhett, he's our IT guy. He's making this Zoom thing happen for us guys that can barely text. What would you do without you? And I know what would Richie do without you. Richie takes all the details from all of us. It's a book called Kowalczyk, Tom, myself, everybody. We just keep throwing Rich. Rich goes, yep, got it, okay, yep, it's done, got it. And it can be overwhelming, but dude, you did a great job. This is a great night tonight. Everybody, congratulations. And I would really like you guys to take a moment to give Rich a good hand. Because many happy Rich, congratulations on a great night. And thank you guys. Good night.
I know everybody's itching to get out of here. I will say a few things. when Scott Ryan came to me and said, here you go, man, you're in charge of the Hall of Fame now, I was a little intimidated because there were some people on the committee that I knew, but definitely made me a little nervous. But I'm glad to say, I tell a lot of people this, it was a really neat job that I got to become friends with, Mr. Dunn and Tom. I've been friends with John Stewart for a while. He was kind of the competing coach for me, but John's a good friend, and Dave Ring, and all these guys. I couldn't do it without them. And Rhett's a wonderful guy in the back. He's put all this together. I came here 20 years ago, and I probably thought I was going to stay a few years when I moved to my hometown. And I realized this is my hometown now. I am from Norwich, and I think you guys all feel the same way. I love it here. This is a great community, and we have a lot of traditions here. And I kind of wanted to lead with one tradition. If you haven't been to Norwich in a long time, I thought it was the oddest tradition that I ever saw when I came here. But now it's like the thing I expect every single time. We usually start events with it, but I think it would be appropriate to end an event with this. So we're going to have Dave Ring come up, and he's going to give us the old Bill Purple chant. When he's done, you guys can all grab water and cupcakes and everything, and you can stay as long as you want. I told my wife I'll be home at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So you guys can stay as long as you want. Mr. Ring's going to lead us out here. Good friend of mine, Mr. Ring. Here you go. Thank you, and safe travels, everyone.